whatever you believe about how best to learn for you is probably incorrect. People have different learning styles. Some people prefer to learn by reading. Some people prefer to highlight. It turns out that the best way to study and learn is to access components of your memory systems that offset forgetting. Now, before I do that, I want to talk about what learning is. Any form of learning involves neuroplasticity, which is the ability for your nervous system to change in response to experience. The change that underlies neuroplasticity at the level of nerve cells generally involves three different mechanisms. One is the strengthening of certain connections. Another form of neuroplasticity is the weakening of connections between neurons. And yet a third form of plasticity, which is often discussed in the media, but is very rare actually in the nervous system, especially the adult nervous system of humans, is neurogenesis, or the addition of new neurons. Right now, and for reasons that will become clear later, I want you to take a brief quiz. Here's my question. This is a 2-question quiz. How many different ways, mechanistically speaking, does neuroplasticity occur? Is it 1 mechanism, 2 mechanisms, or 3 mechanisms? Or is it 4 or 5? Okay. Can you name in your head 2 of the 3 major changes that the nervous system can undergo which are reflective of neuroplasticity? Okay, so the answer to the question is that there are 3 different modes of neuroplasticity, as you recall, or as you may not have been able to recall. That is fine. As you'll soon realize, recognizing the errors in your information retention is another critical and very useful way to retain more information, even if you got the answer wrong or you didn't know. Why did I provide this quiz? Why did I test you? Well, as you'll soon learn, if you look across the total body of research on how best to study and learn, it involves doing exactly what we just did, which is to periodically stop and test yourself on the material that you learned. Testing is not just a way of evaluating what knowledge you've acquired. It also turns out to be the best tool for offsetting forgetting of any kind. This study looked at 3 groups. One group studies 4 times. They study the material 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Then later, they take a test. The second group studies 1, 2, 3 times, takes a test on that material, and then later takes a test. The third group studies the material once, then takes 3 tests on the material, and then later takes a test. So what's analyzed and compared between these different groups is their performance on that final test. The more tests that you take as a way to expose yourself to the material, the better you're going to perform on that material, even if you don't perform that well on those tests. As long as you're able to see the accurate answers to those tests and compare your answers to those answers, will lead to better performance on the ultimate test and retention of that material at some later time. Put differently, it's not about how many times you study the material or how many times you're exposed to the material. It's about being exposed to the material, doing your best to focus and attend to that material, and then self-testing yourself on that material, not just once, but ideally 2 or 3 times. That's what really locks the material into your neural circuits. That's what's going to lead to the most pervasive change, the most durable change, we should say, in your neural circuits that carry that material, that hold that material in your mind, what we call neural encoding. So, the more times you test yourself or that you are tested on material, the better your retention of that material. Now, some people will immediately say, well, goodness, what if I learned it and then I'm tested and I'm somehow consolidating the wrong or inaccurate material? But it doesn't appear to be the case. As long as you learn what the correct answers to the tests are, even if you're getting 40 or 50% or less accurate on those tests that you take immediately after the studying period, that's still going to be a better strategy than rereading the material. Put differently, when you're exposed to material over and over and over again, you think you've learned the material. In fact, your confidence that you've learned the material increases with each subsequent exposure to the material. But actually, you haven't learned it at all compared to the people that are exposed to the material and then take tests on the material, oftentimes straining to get the answers right on those tests. In fact, sometimes getting those answers dead wrong, and then realizing they get those answers dead wrong, or sometimes they just sense it. But guess what? Testing yourself once, twice, maybe 3 times prior to the ultimate test of your knowledge of that material is far and away the best way to lock that material into those neural circuits.